Intergalactic traders had exchanged goods across the vast reaches of space, but none had ever ventured to Earth. Earth, with its volatile atmosphere and primitive technology, was deemed too unpredictable even by the most seasoned spacefarers. That was, until Zarnik the merchant set his sights on the blue planet. Zarnik was known throughout the universe as a master of commerce, with a reputation built on the strength of his ship, the Zerathis, a vessel so resilient it had survived black holes, asteroid fields, and even direct collisions with space debris, crafted from materials unknown to Earthlings. The Zerathis was said to be indestructible. Nothing could pierce its hull, nothing could damage it, nothing, until Earth's atmosphere. As the Zerathis entered Earth's orbit, its sleek, metallic exterior gleamed under the rays of the sun. Zarnik had calculated that a quick stop on Earth would bring him a rare resource, water from the planet's vast oceans, which was highly sought after in interstellar markets. He believed the local inhabitants would be easily swayed by his wealth and technology. After all, who would challenge a ship that could survive anything? But Earth had a secret. It was a planet of extremes, constantly changing, unpredictable, and filled with life forms that had adapted to survive in harsh environments. Zarnik began his descent into Earth's atmosphere. The Zerathis shields hummed as the ship cut through the layers of gases, unaware of the dangers below. As the ship's heat shields began to glow, Zarnik studied the planet's magnetic fields and ionosphere with curiosity. He was eager to land on solid ground, but something was wrong. The turbulence was unlike anything he'd experienced before. The atmosphere, so full of reactive gases, began to react violently to the ship's entry. The first signs were subtle static electricity crackling against the hull, unusual ripples in the air pressure. The Zerathis shields began to shimmer and pulse, an ominous warning, but Zarnik paid no mind. He trusted his ship's superior technology. But Earth's atmosphere was not like the ones he had encountered. The ionized particles, the chaotic weather systems, and the high levels of atmospheric pressure began to warp the very fabric of the ship's protective field. The more the ship fought to stabilize, the more the atmosphere resisted. Energy from the atmosphere began to leak into the ship's systems, overriding its defenses. The hull started to distort. The once impervious materials now shimmered and warped under the pressure, like wax melting under the sun. Zarnik's confident demeanor faltered as he watched his ship's systems begin to overload. The Zerathis' indestructibility was tested for the first time, not by weaponry or hostile forces, but by the raw, uncontrollable power of Earth itself. The very atmosphere was attacking him, weakening his ship with an alien energy he had never encountered before. Panic spread through the merchant's mind. He had always prided himself on understanding the laws of the universe, on being the master of trade and technology, but this planet, with its unpredictable forces, had found a way to defeat him. The Zerathis shields flickered and failed, one by one, until only a thin layer of protection remained, barely holding the ship together. With a great groan, the indestructible ship began to crack under the strain. Pieces of the outer hull disintegrated, turning into fiery streaks as they were consumed by the atmosphere's relentless assault. Zarnik's once pristine vessel was slowly being eaten away, the alien materials giving way to the harsh reality of Earth's environment. In the final moments, as the Zerathis began to plummet toward the planet's surface, Zarnik realized the truth. Earth was not just a collection of rocks and water. It was a living force, one that had weathered countless storms, survived untold catastrophes, and evolved through every possible challenge. And now, even the most advanced technology in the universe could not stand against it. The ship crashed into the ocean with a massive splash, sending waves rippling across the shore. Zarnik's indestructible ship was no more. Only remnants of its once glorious structure remained, slowly sinking beneath the waves. On Earth, the merchant's downfall went unnoticed by the world's inhabitants, who had no idea what had occurred high above them. The planet continued spinning in the vastness of space, as it always had, indifferent to the fate of one ambitious traveler, who had thought he could conquer it. But to Zarnik, Earth had delivered a final lesson. Nothing in the universe was invincible, not even the might of an alien trader's ship. When Zarnik awoke, his first sensation was the weight of water pressing against his chest. His body felt heavy, his limbs unresponsive, and the air was thick with the salt of the ocean. He struggled to regain his senses. his mind slow to process the fact that his ship, the Zerathus, had been obliterated. He was not dead, but he was stranded. The crash had thrown him far from the wreckage. His survival suit, though still intact, was beginning to show signs of wear. It had kept him alive, but just barely, as he swam toward a nearby island. A mixture of anger, confusion, and disbelief consumed him. His ship, the marvel of his technological prowess, had been destroyed by Earth's very atmosphere. A planet, considered primitive by the standards of intergalactic civilization. Zarnik crawled ashore, his energy reserves dangerously low. The sand beneath him felt strange, almost alive, a contrast to the cold steel and synthetic surfaces he had grown so accustomed to. He collapsed onto the beach, his breathing shallow, trying to make sense of what had happened. How could Earth have defeated him so easily? The island he had washed up on was remote, its landscape dominated by thick jungles and high cliffs. There were no signs of advanced civilization, only the raw, unbridled forces of nature. Zarnik, ever the resourceful merchant, began to assess his situation. His communications device was damaged beyond repair, and his food supplies were almost non-existent. But he had survived, had traveled across hostile planets, negotiated with ruthless species, and outwitted pirates and criminals. This would be no different. As he ventured inland, he observed the wildlife around him. The planet was teeming with life animals that were both terrifying and beautiful, plants with strange properties, and the air itself felt electric with energy. Zarnik marveled at how the life forms here seemed to coexist with the forces of nature. He realized that Earth was not like other planets. It had evolved to survive constant change, to thrive in environments that would have destroyed lesser creatures. He had made a grave miscalculation. His technology had been designed to endure against the known elements of space, but it had never been tested by a living planet, by a world that adapted and fought back in ways that defied understanding. Earth was not merely a collection of materials to be conquered. It was a force, a living entity that could not be subdued by technology alone. Days passed as Zarnik struggled to survive. He fashioned crude tools from the materials he found on the island, scavenging what he could from the wreckage of his ship and the surrounding environment. He tried to contact his people, but Earth's magnetic fields interfered with his signals. His frustration grew, and with it, a growing respect for the planet that had humbled him. One day, while exploring a dense forest in search of food, Zarnik came across a group of humans. They were unlike any beings he had encountered before, primitive by his standards, yet they had a certain strength about them. Their eyes were filled with an intensity that he could not quite place. They spoke in a language that he could not understand, but there was no mistaking the way they looked at him, not with fear, but with curiosity. Zarnik's first instinct was to intimidate them, to remind them of his superiority, but something in their gaze made him hesitate. They had survived here, in this harsh environment, without the need for advanced technology. They had adapted to Earth's challenges in a way that even his indestructible ship could not. In the days that followed, Zarnik began to understand. He learned how these humans worked together to harvest food, how they had built their shelters from the land around them. Their ingenuity was not based on machines or energy fields, but on the simple, raw connection to the Earth itself. He sat with them around a fire one night, watching as they cooked food over the flames. The crackling of the fire, the warmth it provided, it felt like a simple but profound connection to the planet, a humbling reminder of what he had lost. In the midst of their primitive existence, they had found something his advanced technology could not offer: harmony with the planet. It was then that Zarnik realized the true cost of his arrogance. He had come to Earth expecting to conquer it, to extract its resources for his own gain, never understanding the intrinsic power of the planet itself. Earth was not something to be mastered, it was something to be respected. Zarnik knew his ship was gone, and so too was his wealth, his position as a master of intergalactic trade, but in its place, he had gained something far more valuable: a deeper understanding of the universe and the forces that shaped it. When the humans finally left, taking him with them, Zarnik did not resist. He had learned that survival on Earth required more than technology. It required understanding, respect, and the willingness to adapt. It was no longer about trading wealth across the stars, but about becoming part of something much larger, a world that had humbled even the greatest of traders. As Zarnik gazed up at the stars that night, He understood for the first time that Earth, in all its unpredictable chaos, had its own kind of power, and that power, unlike any weapon or technology, was something even an indestructible ship could not overcome. Months had passed since Zarnek's ship, the Zirathus, had been reduced to scrap by Earth's unrelenting atmosphere. What had begun as a humiliating defeat had transformed into an unexpected journey of survival, humility, and learning. Zarnek had adapted to life on Earth, becoming more attuned to its rhythms, its seasons, and its creatures. He had earned the trust of the humans, who had taught him not just how to live in harmony with the land, but how to truly understand it. The village where he now resided was a far cry from the luxurious chambers of his intergalactic trade hub, but it had its own simple pleasures: food harvested from the earth, water from the rivers, shelter crafted with skill and respect for the environment. Zarnek had traded the cold, impersonal technology of his people for the warmth of human connection and community. In return, he shared his vast knowledge of the universe, of the stars and planets, of the wonders beyond their small world. They listened with wide eyes, not with awe, but with genuine curiosity. The villagers had accepted him, despite his past, despite the ship he had destroyed. In their eyes, he was no longer just an alien, was Zarnek, a fellow traveler in this strange world. Yet, despite his newfound sense of belonging, something gnawed at him. He had been a merchant for so long, an opportunist driven by profit and the pursuit of power, that he could not entirely shake the itch to trade, to seek out new opportunities. But now, after all that had happened, he found himself questioning what the true price of his trade had been. His ship had been destroyed because he had misunderstood Earth, because he had failed to see the value of the planet beyond its material wealth. Could he still find a way to redeem himself? Could he find a new purpose in this world? One that was not just about extracting resources, but about giving back. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Zarnek found himself standing at the edge of the forest, staring out at the vast expanse of the ocean. The waves crashed against the shore, the sound both soothing and powerful. It was here, in the quiet moments of reflection, that Zarnek felt a stirring deep within him. It was as though the planet itself was calling to him, urging him to take what he had learned and apply it to something greater than himself. He returned to the village, where an idea began to take root in his mind. The humans had struggled with challenged droughts, diseases, and the unpredictability of the land itself. Zarnek had witnessed their resilience, but he had also seen their limitations. Could he help them? Could his knowledge, combined with the lessons he had learned from Earth itself, offer a way forward for them? He approached the village elders, those who led with wisdom and experience. They listened carefully as Zarnek explained his vision to establish a sustainable system where Earth's natural resources would be used in harmony with its cycles. He offered to build a new kind of technology, not one that exploited the land, but one that worked with it. Solar energy, renewable farming techniques, and advanced materials crafted from Earth's own minerals, designed to enhance, not deplete. He would trade his knowledge of the stars not for riches, but for a chance to give back to the planet that had humbled him. The elders were skeptical at first. They had lived for generations with little more than what the land provided, and the thought of introducing advanced technology was daunting. But Zarnek's sincerity, his willingness to work alongside them, and his deep respect for the land won them over. They agreed to let him try. Zarnek began the long, difficult task of transforming the village. He helped them harness the energy of the sun, using simple but effective solar panels crafted from the materials he scavenged from his shipwreck. He introduced crop rotation and water conservation methods that allowed them to grow more food with less strain on the land. Slowly, the village began to thrive in ways it never had before. But it wasn't just the villagers who benefited. Zarnek, too, began to change. In his days of working alongside the humans, in his moments of reflection, he began to see the universe in a different light. It was no longer a vast space to be conquered, a series of planets to be traded and harvested for profit. It was a delicate web of interconnected forces, each world a unique entity that required respect, balance, and understanding. His old life, the life of a trader, seemed distant, no, almost irrelevant. The riches of the universe no longer called to him. Instead, he found fulfillment in the simple joys of the village. Watching the crops grow, the children laugh, and the people of Earth thrive brought him a sense of peace. he had never known before. Years passed, and Zarnik's work continued to bear fruit. The village grew into a small community, a model for sustainable living that others began to take notice of. Word of his efforts spread to nearby towns, and soon, people from other regions came to learn from the alien, who had once tried to conquer the planet, only to be transformed by it. Zarnik had become not just a survivor, but a teacher and ambassador between his people and the Earth. One day, as Zarnik stood on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, watching the sun set once again, he realized that Earth had given him something no trade agreement ever could. It had shown him the true meaning of wealth not in gold or trade goods, but in harmony, in the interdependence of all life, and in the knowledge that even the greatest of ships could not withstand the forces of nature if they were built on arrogance and exploitation. He smiled, his heart lighter than it had ever been. The indestructible ship had been reduced to dust, but in its place, something far more valuable had been born, a new way of living, a new way of trading, and a new understanding of the universe. Zarnik, the once proud merchant of the stars, had found his redemption, and it was not among the riches of the galaxy, but on the soil of Earth, in the simplicity of life itself. Years had passed since Zarnik had first set foot on Earth, and with each passing day, the village he had helped transform grew stronger. The simple, sustainable practices he had introduced took root, not just in the land, but in the hearts of the people. They had learned to live with the cycles of nature, respecting the land rather than exploiting it. Zarnik, who had found his place in this small corner of the world, no longer a trader chasing after wealth, but a teacher, a mentor, and a steward of the planet. Yet, Earth was changing. The world was not immune to the growing challenges of an interconnected universe. Despite the village's success, Zarnik could not ignore the signs: strange weather patterns, fluctuating temperatures, and growing resource scarcity. As word of his sustainable practices spread, so too did the attention of larger, more powerful forces beyond the village. These forces were not interested in the simple ways of Earth's inhabitants or Zarnik's ecological initiatives. They were interested in one thing: control. One crisp morning, while walking along the edge of the village, Zarnik spotted a familiar shape on the horizon. A vessel, sleek and unmistakable, descended from the sky, the kind of ship that could only belong to an intergalactic corporation. Zarnik's heart sank as it touched down on the outskirts of the village. He knew exactly what this meant. They had come for Earth. They had come to exploit its resources, to extract what they could, and to replace the sustainable methods that had taken years to build with their cold, unfeeling technology. His fears had been realized. The world that had once seemed so resilient, so untouchable, was now a target. A group of suited individuals emerged from the ship, their expressions cold and calculated. They approached Zarnik, who stood rooted to the spot, an uneasy resolve settling over him. Zarnik, the leader, a tall and imposing figure, spoke in a clipped tone. "We've heard of your work here. Your methods are impressive, but Earth's resources are ours to harvest. You're standing in the way of progress." Zarnik's mind raced. He had seen the corporate machines before, the entities that cared only for profit and expansion, that had left entire planets desolate in their wake. His journey had taught him that the exploitation of a world was not just a matter of resources, it was a matter of respect, of understanding the delicate balance that kept everything in motion. "I'm not standing in your way," Zarnik said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm protecting what makes this world worth saving." The corporate leader scoffed. "What does a primitive world like this have to offer us, except its resources? Your methods are outdated. The future belongs to us." Zarnik's gaze hardened. The future is not about control, it's about balance. Earth's strength lies not in what can be extracted, but in what can be nurtured. If you destroy this world for the sake of profit, you'll have nothing left to exploit. This planet is not a commodity, it's a living system, one that cannot be replicated in any laboratory or factory. The leader's expression darkened. "Enough. This conversation is over." The corporate team turned to leave, but Zarnik wasn't done. "I may not have the ships or the resources you do, but I have something more powerful. I have knowledge, and I have people who believe in this world, who know how to live in harmony with it, and we will fight for this planet, for its future, even if it costs us everything." The corporate leader paused, narrowing his eyes. You're either very brave or very foolish, but it won't matter, we'll be back. Zarnik stood his ground, knowing this was just the beginning of a battle that would extend far beyond the boundaries of his village. The people of Earth, with all their flaws and strengths, would have to rise together to defend what they had built. But Zarnik no longer feared the outcome. He had learned to respect the forces of the universe, and in that respect, he found an unshakable strength. As the corporate vessel lifted into the sky and disappeared into the distance, Zarnik turned to the village. The people were watching him, waiting for a sign, a direction. He raised his hand, signaling for them to gather around. His mind was already racing, formulating plans, strategies, and alliances. Earth was under threat, but this time, it was not just his fight, it was theirs too. We've lived with the land, and now we must protect it, Zarnik said, his voice carrying across the gathering. The universe may have its power, but we have something that can never take our connection to this world. And with that, we will not lose. Over the next few weeks, Zarnik and the villagers began organizing. They reached out to other nearby communities, spreading word of the threat and the importance of preserving the land. They shared knowledge, built alliances, and prepared for what was to come. It wasn't just about defending their village, it was about defending the entire planet. They would not let Earth fall into the hands of those who would drain it dry for their own gain. Zarnik had come to Earth seeking to conquer and trade, but now, he found himself leading a rebellion, not against the forces of nature, but against those who would seek to dominate it. The merchant had become a protector, and Earth, once thought to be a primitive and vulnerable world, had become his battleground. In the end, Zarnik knew that he had no indestructible ship, no advanced technology to fight off the corporate empire, but he had something far more valuable: the resilience of Earth's people, the power of nature, and the lessons of humility that had been etched into his very soul. And with that, he would face whatever came next. Because Earth, with all its complexities, its beauty, and its raw power, had already shown him that no force, no matter how great, could ever truly conquer it, not as long as there were those willing to fight for it. And Zarnik, once an alien trader, had found his true purpose to be one of those who would stand and defend it.